post-traumatic stress, mental health, suicide. Does it make you uncomfortable to hear that? I don't blame you. I'm a paramedic lieutenant with a local fire rescue department, and I've been a first responder for a total of 17 years. My own mental health journey began 8 years ago when I responded to the drowning of a little girl that was the same age and size as my son. Now, up to that point in my career, I had seen death regularly. Stabbings, shootings, car accidents, but never a child, and never a child just like the one I had at home. From the time of dispatch to arriving at the house couldn't have been more than 4 minutes, but it felt like 4 hours. As we walked into the house to the backyard and I knelt beside her, I couldn't get over the fact that how small, how innocent she looked. But as a first responder, you're trained to look for certain things, signs of life. And what I saw were the blown pupils, the pale skin color. And her gums were gray, not the pink that they should have been. In spite of all this, none of us were ready to give up. And we decided, due to our remote location, that we were going to get a helicopter. Also knowing we needed somewhere to land it, and that we were close to a golf course. We picked her up, ran her across. As my coworker laid her on the dark green grass, I immediately began compressions. Not 2 feet from her beautiful face. I didn't know it at the time. I was later told by a coworker that I said the same phrase over and over and over again. I only mention this because for the 10 years prior to that, I had never done anything like that. 8 years since, never done anything like that. In that moment, as I looked at her, I said, "Please, baby girl, just breathe. Breathe, baby girl," over and over and over. When the helicopter landed, we picked her up, now with a tube in her throat to help her breathe, and an IV in place to hand her to the flight nurse. I couldn't help but believe I saw the same look in his face, the same recognition, but still he took her from us and continued our efforts. As the helicopter faded into the distance, and I walked back to the rescue to restock it for the next call, I called my then mother-in-law and I said, "I need to speak to my son." And she said, "I'm sorry, he's asleep." I said, "I don't care. I just need to hear him breathe. Just put the phone next to him. I need to hear him breathe." I don't know how long I sat there, listening to something that for so long I had taken for granted. But when I was done, I turned to my officer and said, "I need to see her. I need to know." I think we all did. So we proceeded down to University Hospital. And as I walked into the pediatric emergency room, I looked to my left, and in room 1, I saw her. And my heart broke in half because she was in that room alone with her parents. There were no doctors, no nurses, frantically working to save her, doing everything they could because there was nothing left to do. She was gone. And as I walked into the room, I expected yelling, screaming. Instead, her parents turned towards us and said, "Thank you for everything you did. We know you tried your hardest, and we appreciate it." I looked at them, and in a voice that didn't sound like my own, I said, "I'm sorry for your loss." And as I walked away, I couldn't help but disagree. It was my job to save that little girl, and I didn't. For the next 3 years, I lived in a haze. I didn't really know it at the time, but I'm ashamed to tell you today that I don't really remember a whole lot. I began to cry uncontrollably, and I don't know the trigger. I don't know why. But I know that when I gathered myself up enough, I went out to my then wife and said, "I need help. I need to talk to somebody." To tell you I was nervous to talk to somebody, to speak about things that for years I had tried to push away. I did everything every day to become the person I was before that call. I was terrified. But I went. And here's the thing. The fog did begin to lift a little bit. I began to feel better. But what was also interesting is I thought I was good. I thought after counseling, I would have the tools that I needed, that I would be fine, that I could move on to anything. I was wrong. I was merely more informed as to what was wrong with me, and in turn became upset because I continued to go on more calls. I saw more death. I lost more children, and I wasn't always able to move on. I wasn't living, I was surviving. I wish I could stand up here today and tell you that I hit rock bottom once or twice, even 3 times. It's been more than that. You see, that's the thing about a mental health condition, is it's up here where only you live, and only you can decide to be better, and only you can fight. It's why so many of us can be surrounded by people who love us and who care about us, and still feel completely alone. I really wish that people would understand that when you're not okay, it's okay to not be okay. The thing about this condition is that it's up here. And so it's going to start contributing to things like our higher divorce rates, our new addictions to alcohol and prescription pills that we didn't have before. That's why we commit suicide. Now, suicide to most people doesn't make sense in the first place, but to a veteran, a first responder, people who dedicate their lives to helping others, why can't we help ourselves? Why can't we save ourselves? Did you know that last year there were more first responder suicides than line of duty deaths? And that's based only off the numbers that were reported. The actual number could be much higher. Post-traumatic stress disorder is defined as a mental health condition that's triggered by either witnessing or experiencing a traumatic event. Some of the symptoms of it can include flashbacks, depression, anxiety, and uncontrollable thoughts about the event. I'm here to tell you all of the above is true. But what I want to do right now is I want to focus on 3 words: mental health condition. Because I believe that's where the stigma is. That's why we're so afraid to admit that we're not okay. But guess what? Post-traumatic stress doesn't just affect first responders. It doesn't just affect veterans. It can affect a car accident survivor, an abuse victim, a witness to a mass shooting. It can affect you. We need to start the conversation, and we need to start it now. That's why a little over a year ago, the advocacy community, Skulls for Hope, began. You see, after that drowning so long ago, I began to make bracelets. And in each bracelet, I would include a skull. And I was asked, why a skull? Doesn't a skull represent death? Well, like any symbol, it can mean many different things to many different people. And for me, it represented the impermanence of life, that everything that lives dies, and we need to live every day to its fullest. Believe me, I see death almost every week, and I'm very aware of it. And for me, in those moments, I was able to grab. I was able to have something concrete to touch, to reflect, to look at, and know that I wasn't alone, and that I was part of a community. Just like so many of us, though, I had no desire to share my story. I had no desire to speak about the issues that I had with anxiety, with depression, that I drank too much, that I had a mental health condition. Luckily, I had 2 friends that did know my story, and they told me I was doing a disservice to others by not sharing it. Well, with some pushing, I realized that with the idea that if I could help maybe one person, I would share my story. So Skulls for Hope began, and I'm here to speak for those who can't speak for themselves yet. Now, when it began, I can tell you I fully thought that I was going to be ridiculed, made fun of, that people were going to judge me. Instead, I got a new family, a community of first responders, of veterans, of nurses, of doctors, of everybody in between. We proudly call ourselves Skulls for Hope, and we're here to start the conversation. Look around you. Chances are, you know somebody that's suffering. It may even be you. When will you be ready to join the conversation? When that time comes, we'll be here.